Welcome back. I'm your host, Alexa Griffith, and today we're diving headfirst into the world of data engineering, cutting edge AI tools, and the evolving landscape of agentic intelligence. Joining me is Amin, technical sales engineer for data and AI at IBM, and the author of the insightful blog, Data is Everything. Amin brings a unique perspective on topics like IBM's watsonx platform, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, known as RAG, and how agentic AI is transforming the way we interact with technology. If you're curious about modern data tools, fascinated by AI's ethical implications, or eager to understand the future of data-driven decision making, this conversation is definitely one you should listen in on. Amin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, so first, why don't you tell me a little bit about your journey into tech?
Cool. Yeah, I have been a computer nerd for a long time since I got, random computer parts donated to me by my dad, when he had them thrown away at his hospital that he worked at. So my dad also comes from an engineering background. He works in biomed engineering. And I think my family definitely encouraged me to go down a STEM background. And for me, it definitely was computers and troubleshooting. And that's why I elected to do computer engineering in college for my degree. But at the same time, I started working at two different computer retailers, one called Fry's. So if you're on the West Coast, you're probably familiar with that. On the East Coast, you guys have Micro Center, which is also a very geeky kind of, computer hardware DIY store. So I learned a lot about, communicating with people and helping them with their, computer needs while also studying the concept technically in college. So I kind of got a glimpse of both the hard skills and soft skills growing up, and that's kind of how I ended up where I am today.
Yeah, so why tech sales? And do you find that people in tech sales are as technical as you are?
Yeah, it's a good question. I really enjoy working face to face with clients, and that love stemmed out of what I did in terms of my part-time job in high school and college. I enjoyed working with customers, just helping them, get the computer parts that they need, help them create the right configuration that made sense based on their requirements, whether it's for gaming, video editing, or, some very specific compute task. And with them walking away happy was awesome. I mean, I did enjoy the commission aspect, of course, monetarily, but I did really enjoy giving them the need, meeting all their needs and them walking away happy with a solution that made sense for them. And coming out of college, there were opportunities for me to do either hardware or software sales, at a more kind of higher stage with business to business sales. And really did see the financial opportunity there combined with kind of what I'm passionate about, which is, being a thought leader and recommending the right things for customers and helping them, find what they need to solve their business problems. I think that's really why I ended up going down the tech sales route because I enjoy the technology and I like developing, but I also want to be in front of clients and be able to present it to them as a credible solution and do that soft skill aspect as well.
Yeah, it's a really good skill set to be both able to be deeply technical and talk to people and sell the product.
Yeah.
Usually people think of those being different skill sets, especially in engineering comparatively. So yeah, do you feel like that you are unique in this sea of tech sales? Do you feel like that you are someone with more technical knowledge than most?
I would say not really. Honestly, I think the tech sales role, I feel it also depends on the sales organization you work for. I think at IBM, we're such a big company that the technical skill set is spread across multiple verticals. Like we have a dedicated client engineering team that works on AI POCs and stuff like that. So I don't have to be as deeply technical as they are. I can be kind of the bridge. So I have a deep enough understanding of the technology to have a level two or level three conversation. But then when it gets to a point where we're going to do like very deep POCs or implementation, I have a breadth of resources that I can leverage and work with on that technical side. Now, I will say that that spectrum, really depends on the organization you're in and the kind of role that you have. So I feel like even as a software engineer, you definitely do need soft skills. Like you sell internally to some degree, I feel like from what I've heard from other roles is You have to communicate with the business line, understand the requirements, nail down what they need. But really, the key difference is you're working on very impactful production level workloads. Whereas on my end, I'm just kind of doing demos, maybe small prototypes to prove the concept. So I feel like that's really where it differs. But overall, like every role has that spectrum of soft skill versus hard skill at the end of the day. It just depends on where you're at and what role you are. So,
Exactly. Like you said, I'm sure in a lot of different organizations, there are various types of salespeople who are more and less technical, and probably there is a big group of people who work technical and then go into sales. So,
yeah.
yeah, but I'm sure that's a much smaller amount of people that are only technical or only, sales oriented as well. So it's pretty cool to have both skill sets.
Yeah.
I also saw in
Agree.
your experience something interesting that I wanted to ask you about. It said that you're a radio host. How did you get into that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. When I was growing up, I also really liked journalism because I love sports. So I grew up watching like First Take and all these various sports programs, and I really wanted to like get into basketball journalism. I really still do enjoy sports, but career-wise, in terms of the financial opportunity, my parents were like, "You got to do STEM, you got to do
Yeah.
STEM," and that they were right, right? But I do still really enjoy sports and talking about it. And so when I was in college, I figured to do it as a hobby, and it was a good opportunity for me to join Coug Radio, which was basically an open avenue for college students to come in and talk about anything they wanted to. So me and my friend decided to talk about Rockets basketball, and I really enjoyed doing that. I kind of miss it, to be honest. That's why when you asked me to do this podcast, I was like, oh, cool. I actually think that would be awesome because I can yap and talk and just, talk about some of my favorite things like technology. So yeah, I actually did enjoy that a lot. I wish I did more of it now. So yeah, I'm kind of actually inspired that you're doing this. I kind of want to go back and revisit it. So
Nice. I love that. So, also, what led you to IBM? Because you work at IBM now, right?
yeah, funny, I applied to like so many different roles. I did not just apply to sales engineering roles. I also applied to like more technical roles like software engineering, data science, and stuff like that when I was still in college. And the reason why is because at the time, I mean, the job market wasn't bad. It was just, I think I needed to expose myself to various opportunities and be a little bit more open. And believe it or not, I actually was leaning to a more technical role, but there was a strong need for sales engineers at the time. So I did get a lot of opportunities around being a technical sales or sales engineer kind of role. And specifically around IBM, I got invited to a career fair virtually. It was a virtual career fair, and I struck up a conversation with one of the field hiring people, and they really told me like, from our perspective, like we know that you come from a hardware background, but we see that you have done sales for a while. You kind of understand the communication aspects, and we kind of need that on top of being able to learn really fast and be able to adapt to new technology and be able to explain it to customers. That's in a nutshell what all sales engineers do at its core. And I was like, sounds like a good time to me. That's kind of what I like doing. So sure. And that's how I ended up at IBM. I did an internship. I had a lot of fun during the internship. I definitely got what I wanted out of it, which was really the idea of all internships at the end of the day. And I learned a lot. And then after that, I got the offer. And I've been in this role for about 2 years, doing pretty much the same thing over the last 2 years. So it's been a fun journey. IBM's taught me a lot. It is a very fast-paced environment, and that's all tech, I'm sure you know. It's always moving really fast. Because when I started the role, I was really focused on like data concepts, but now it's a
Yeah.
really interesting blend. Like I do a lot of data stuff, which is still what I enjoy more is data engineering focused stuff like, data governance, data integration, stuff like that. But I've really started to inevitably dive deeper into AI and data science with ML and Gen AI and now agentic and all these various concepts. So I and that's really my job. I'm a data and AI tech specialist. So, it is part of my role, but at IBM, I think you have to be willing to adapt. Like the technology is always changing. So it's cool for sure. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing company to work for. I mean, when you say IBM, everyone knows what that is, and that's
Right?
fulfilling, right? It is
I
such
agree.
a massive company. So, what is it like working there at such a huge place?
Yeah, yeah. I think um, one thing I will tell you, a lot of people know IBM, but I think one of the challenges is we're always evolving. Like in the last 100 years that we've been around, we've evolved we've had like 6 or 7 major evolutions, right? Like we were at first like a mainframe oriented and focused kind of company. And then, of course, came, distributed computing and PCs, right? At some point, we were a major PC company. And then, of course, hybrid cloud and the hyperscalers in the 2010s, and then data science and ML, and now Gen AI. Like it's in quantum. There's so many, baskets we're in. And I think sometimes it's interesting because not a lot of people know what we're up to today. They know about the past, but that's a good thing too, right? Like I learned something new about IBM's past every day. Like the other day, I learned that we were like pretty much the one of the originating, and not the credited for the full thing, but we originated kind of the concept of LASIK for eye surgery. I'm like, what? How do we get our hands in that?
That's
Right? It's
amazing. I didn't know that.
Right. And every month I run into that kind of thing where I'm like, I didn't know we were involved in that. Actually, there is, I'll send it to you. There's a 100 year for every 100 year at IBM that IBM's been around. There's been like one major invention, and there's like a whole book about it. So I'll send that to you. But in a nutshell, I think working at IBM, it's a really big company. There's a lot of things you can get into. Like if I wanted to pivot to a new role tomorrow, there is that opportunity, right? Like there are a lot of opportunities at IBM, from research to engineering to marketing to there's so many different technology verticals as well. So it is really interesting. The one thing I will say though is being at such a big company, you do have to network a lot. You have to be out there to make yourself known and visible because there's so many people. So yeah, I think that that's one aspect you have to be prepared for working at a big company.
Yeah, it's definitely slightly a different game to play, but like you said, a lot of opportunity to change even within the company, which is something you just can't get at a startup. So that's pretty neat. I
Yeah.
saw, yeah, I saw that recently you started a blog called Data's Everything. I really liked your articles. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. So part of the tech sales role, I feel like you have to insert yourself as a thought leader
Mm,
because, for clients to trust your perspective, I think it's important that you are visible technically out in the field and have kind of a, not, I wouldn't say a social presence, but definitely some
mm,
eminence, technical eminence, right? In terms of
yeah.
kind of what your opinions are, and independent, honestly, of IBM as well. Like you can have your own thoughts, opinions, and perspective, right? But of course, we are here to promote various products. So,
Yeah.
tying in your perspective and your spin to it and your personality and your brand with kind of what you're promoting, I think is a really, really good thing to have. And I learned that from my mentors. And so, especially with supporting customers that have the tools, I've learned that having like a blog where you can do how-tos or
Hmm.
opinion writing and stuff like that is really it's really a really good benefit. On the opposite end, I actually enjoyed a lot. So if you read my articles, I pretty much dive deep into various topics, like probably a couple pages almost. But I do like to dive deep and not I don't push out too many, but maybe like one a quarter is kind of my goal. But just I look for something I'm really passionate about that I want to write about and spend a lot of time kind of crafting it and put it out there when I feel like it's absolutely ready. And I've really enjoyed that process. I feel like when I finish writing it and it's out there, I'm really proud of the work. And because I've seen that it's helped clients understand the concepts, understand the products, and it's also been used in a lot of other collateral as a way to kind of market our products. I'm very, very happy with the outcome of it. I won't say I have a lot of readers, but I have enjoyed putting it together, and hopefully, as I touch on more topics and kind of grow the audience, it will turn into something really amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'll say I did read a couple of the articles you have two on there, and both of them very much seemed very well thought out and well planned. And it did seem like you had a perspective, like a voice to give about what you were talking about. So I think that's something really special. So congrats on that.
I appreciate it. And I should have said what it's about. I haven't like sure people are like, okay, what the hell is it about? So data is everything is about pretty much what it sounds for. Everything from databases to data engineering, data science, all the way up to like agentic AI and kind of the cutting edge. I actually focus more on the data stuff, but I do enjoy talking about the AI stuff as well. So just basically quick context of what the blog is about. I apologize.
Yeah, I also love the data stuff. I miss writing about it as much, but IBM lets you kind of write whatever you want about these things, just given that it's, your own opinions, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
Good.
the key piece is, what's going to benefit me in my role today, like,
Yeah.
being in tech sales, but also kind of how can I frame it in a way where it's like my own branding and my own
Yeah.
opinion. And I think there is a dual positive in that you can promote the products that you work with while also kind of working on your writing, working on your brain and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. And it's something I'm doing on my own. Like I
Hmm.
just enjoy doing it. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's good. And I wanted to talk about your blog as well. So you discussed the importance of high quality data for AI initiatives. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by what is high quality data and
Yeah.
why is it so important for AI initiatives?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have experienced somewhat this push, like multiple pushes towards digitalization and also, Gen AI. And before that, it was the information age, right?
Mhm.
For a long time, like in the last 20 years, there has been a really strong push towards using data as an asset to accelerate business outcomes, right? It's
Yeah,
nothing new. Even with the Gen AI world, it's not anything new. It's been around for a long time.
data is
But what's
everything. Yeah.
exactly, data is everything. But specifically to your point around high quality data, we see that, especially with the explosion in data volume and data formats and also the variety of data out there. There's a lot more that's being collected, but in terms of curating it for real business outcomes, that's really where the challenge is, right? Around data quality, lineage, where did this data come from, explainability for models later on in the life cycle. That's where a lot of organizations are actually at a stopping point or a pause because they can't get a wrap fully around managing their data to be able to leverage it for real business insights, right? Like ML or quality dashboard, trusted dashboards,
Yeah.
or generative AI projects. So the idea around high quality data is that the data can be trusted. It's governed. So, any data that should be masked or, non-PII data is kind of obfuscated for business use. And also at the same time, explainability of where this data came from, lineage, right? So from collection all the way to target. Who's using this data? Where did it come from? And how was it transformed and integrated to be used for this end target application, whether it's ML or analytics and so forth. So that's really the initiative around high quality data is being able to trust it for those various outcomes. And as a result, you get uh, trust as the result of trusted high quality data is being able to make more accurate decision making, right, across the business, as well as feeding quality Gen AI models, right? And that's really what's going to accelerate the growth of the business. And also, but for the most part, it's your competitive advantage, right?
Yeah.
The quality data is your competitive advantage. So it is a very important initiative, overlooked sometimes by AI, but there is no AI without IA. That's what we say, So that's kind of the really one of my main passions and kind of the technologies I work with today.
Yeah. And in this article, you also mentioned an IBM product, DataStage. Can you explain what that is and how that fits into this high quality data discussion?
Yeah, so it's funny you brought up DataStage. DataStage is actually one of my favorite products at IBM, and it's actually an integral part of our overall strategy around our products. It is a core piece of our holistic kind of um, portfolio of data quality products, and we call it Data Fabric. So Data Fabric is not really a product or a platform. It's more of an architectural term that we use to describe all these various, tools and services. And so the idea of a data fabric is what we've talked about, curating high quality data, connecting data producers, be it data engineers or DBAs, to data consumers, data scientists, data analysts, or business analysts who need high quality data for their role, right? And so DataStage is our pretty much our data integration tool, right? Think of ETL, ELT, and it's been around for a really long time. Actually, fun fact, 20 so years ago, it was an acquisition, and we've continued to maintain and innovate this product for a really long time. And it's used by a lot of clients and industries across the world, like banking, retail, uh, 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 utilities, all the way to just transportation and so many other industries. And it's actually a very integral part, both in terms of operational data and also business data, right? So it's used for calculating balances across all the branches in a bank, all the way to, in the retail world, generating the quality data that's used in dashboards to report on sales and profit loss and stuff like that, right? So it is a really cool ETL tool, and it's been around for a really long time, and we've continued to innovate it to meet the needs of being cloud native, leveraging, data stage in a way that it's very extensible because it is pretty much a no code low code uh, pipeline tool, but then also being able to add your own custom stages and enable that reusability that we feel is lacking in the market today, because a lot of tools are very, very code focused, which is a good thing in some cases. But in other cases, what if you need that extensibility and reusability, right? And to scale across thousands of pipelines, DataStage is really good in that area. And then another thing, the secret sauce is the engine. So the parallel engine that sits under DataStage is a really, really powerful ETL engine. And what a lot of customers love about DataStage is the performance. It's fantastic for ETL workloads. So it's been around for a long time, and it has we continue to innovate it, and I enjoy the product a lot just because I love kind of building pipelines, and it's been a phenomenal tool to learn. It's definitely got a lot of features and function. So
Is this like a more performant version of Airflow?
yes, so exactly. I mean, it's similar to Airflow because um, Airflow kind of orchestrates pipelines, right?
Yeah.
DataStage is the pipeline. We have
Okay.
another tool called Watson Pipelines, which allows you to orchestrate multiple data stage flows with DBT code, with other, notebooks and stuff like that, and kind of
Hmm.
throw it together and schedule it and be able to, observe the pipeline behavior. So Airflow would kind of be the equivalent of Watson Pipeline in that we would orchestrate these
Yeah.
different data stage flows. But I would say data stage is similar to like in terms of similarity, like a tool like Informatica Power Center or Quick Click Talent, or even like in the coding world, like almost like a Spark notebook, but much better in terms of the reusability and also the pre-built stages and also execution performance. So it's like the ETL tool for the enterprise.
And for those that don't know, when you say ETL, I believe it's extract, transform, load. Is that
Yep.
right? Oh, I
Extract,
still remember it.
transform, load. Yep. And
Nice.
that is a very, very pivotal term in data engineering, and
Mm.
also when we talk about curated data, being able to take data from the source, do some transformations, and then load it into a target. Very, very popular framework for integrating data.
Yeah, I also used to work on these data pipelines a lot. I enjoyed it a lot as well. And it's a lot of taking the data you get in, transforming it in a way that it can go into some table efficiently so then it can be queried in some way. Basically, that's the way I understand it. Is that the way you see it used a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a lot of transformations that you'll want to do in flight before the data is loaded, like sorts, aggregations, joins from multiple data sources, whether structured or semi-structured. And so the power of data stages is that there's 100+ different connectors. You don't have to go code your own drivers. Like you can easily connect Snowflake and IBM DB2 and all these other various targets and sources, together and create these pipelines in a no code, low code kind of format. And also combined with kind of the performance of data stage, it becomes a really powerful tool.
That's amazing. So with the rise recently of, Gen AI, large language models, all that, how have you seen these integration tools or the challenges using these integration tools and just in general data integration? How have you seen that change? Like what are some of the key challenges people are seeing now?
Yeah, I think there is a couple different things. First of all, integration style. So for a long time, there's been definitely a dominance around ETL, and there still is. But in some cases, maybe you want to do the transformations directly on the target, on the warehouse, like ELT, right? There's also cases where you don't want to do batch or bulk load, right? Like you don't want to just do an overnight big load and transform into the target. Sometimes you'll want to do a streaming use case. So in
Yeah.
real-time data. What if you want to do replication? What about virtualization? So with this push towards AI, there's actually a need for different workload requirements depending on the use case. And so IBM has not only taken and embraced ETL, but we've acquired a tool called StreamSets for streaming data pipelines.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of StreamSets before, but it's pretty much similar to DataStage, but more so doing it in real time. So as the data is flowing, it's doing the transformations and then loading into the target. So it's more of a real-time pipeline. There's also replication. There's also virtualization. We meet the needs in all those various areas. But then building on that, what about looking at uh, uh, execution, right? So sometimes you're going to be running AI workloads in one cloud. Sometimes you might run it in your own data center. Sometimes you might work hybrid, right? What if we can take these pipelines and execute them wherever the workload is, wherever the data is? And that's kind of something we've worked diligently on is this idea of remote execution. So no matter what cloud you choose, whether it's IBM Cloud or AWS or GCP or Azure, we can actually take these various integration tools and execute the actual pipeline inside your own VPC. And this is a really powerful kind of differentiator of our tools is that we introduce this concept of the control plane and the data plane. So you can design your jobs and your pipelines inside the control plane and then execute it wherever your data lives. And this is really important because for AI, sometimes you're going to be running it in the cloud. Sometimes it will be on your own data center. Sometimes you'll move from one data center to the other. Sometimes your data will move, right? So it's important that you can execute the data where it lives. So there's a lot of things that we offer to help with workload flexibility to help clients today.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot more hybrid cloud environments today. So I could see where that would be very useful. You also mentioned this concept of data as a product. Can you explain a little bit about why we should consider data a product?
Yeah, so there is definitely a very big push towards this philosophy. It's building on that concept that we talked about a data fabric, right? Where the whole architectural concept of connecting data producers to data consumers. Well, building on that, it's really a mindset change as well, around looking as data as a byproduct of your organization. And what I mean by that is, data is not just something that keeps the lights on at your company or, is a IT asset. It's actually your competitive edge. It's the gold mine of your company. And it's proven because there is a fact out there from Forbes that data-driven organizations are like 19, I think it's 19 times more likely or more effective at customer acquisition and 23 times more effective at being profitable. And that's because they look at data as the engine to make the right decisions, right? And that's really the main philosophy that the companies that are super competitive are embracing is looking data as a product that is a gold mine of information for them to make valuable decision making and be data driven. So yeah, that's really why this whole concept of data product has emerged because it really is one of the most valuable assets an organization can have.
Yeah, and I think we've all seen where LLMs like ChatGPT might give the wrong result. I assume this is because of having something like bad data. How do you identify bad data, and how are you able to make sure that you're only using the best data for your results and for your model?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it also depends. It is a multi-layered kind of approach depending on the structure of your data. So we'll start with what we're used to, which is structured tabular data, which we use for reporting or even ML, right, for training an ML model. In a lot of cases, we're looking for things like uh, inconsistencies in the values, right? It could be lack of uniqueness in the columns, or a change in the frequency of certain values, or even at a high level, incomplete formats, or varying formats across the various uh, uh, values within a column, right? And then also at a high level, when we talk about the whole process, to be able to explain an ML model, you have to know what data it was trained on. And without knowing everything from source to target, so the data source that we collected from, the transformations that were done in a tool like DataStage, or any transformation pipeline or data pipeline like Spark, to prepare that data, all the way to where it's being loaded into, and what training techniques we use to train the model. All those are critical for trusted quality model, and explaining it, right? On the Gen AI side, it's more interesting because now we're looking at unstructured data, right? So, documents, web pages, and stuff like that. And that's really where we talk about unstructured data governance. So document annotation, looking at, removing sensitive data from these documents. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out, and a potential liability, right? Also, being able to understand, how to chunk these documents so that the output doesn't produce a really long answer, right? So there's a lot of techniques on the unstructured data side as well. We actually have an integration tool for unstructured data to help you annotate and be able to curate documents before ingesting it into a vector database for things like RAG. And that's really what's going to help enable quality data for Gen AI or ML, or even analytics, right? Still very important for analytics as well. So it
Yeah.
really depends on the structure and the use case, but there are a lot of techniques out there.
Yeah, you mentioned explainability, and that's another important concept for AI. Can you explain what explainability in AI is?
Yeah, for sure. It's really about, okay, and I'll give you an analogy. Uh, you know, anytime you want to buy something new from the store, you're going to look probably, and especially if you're health conscious. I'm not too health conscious, so I'll consume a lot of things and not check my nutrition label, but you should. You 100% should, because there's a lot of things that go into your food that you need to know are going into your food. So you look at your nutrition label, and it's pretty much this kind of transparent understanding of, what was this made of, right? What fats, or how much carbs does it have, and stuff like that. And that transparency is critical for us to make decisions on the food that we eat. It's the same concept for cooking a meal as well. Like, what did you use to make this? Like, what ingredients did you use? And then you kind of go about and you say, I made it with this, 2 cups of this, 3 cups of that, and you name it. Well, in AI models, you need to have that same philosophy, right? If you build an AI model with, trained data, and somebody asks you what data was used to train this model, you should be able to explain that. And that comes with a lot of different things. Like it comes with best practices within the organization. That's most important, but then also some technology to help enable that. Because data scientists don't want to spend all their time documenting the entire life cycle of building a model. But there are tools out there like watsonx.governance, which we'll probably talk about later, that help you document that process automatically as you're building out the model, as you're testing it, as you're evaluating it, all the way to it being up in production and being and monitoring it. So yes, I think explainability of models is important because you know for you to be adherent to evolving regulations. Like, it's not there yet in terms of these strict regulations to explain these models, but it's coming, and you need to be able to, under, transparently, be explain what was used to train your model, and how did you curate the data for this model. It's extremely important.
Yeah, I could see that becoming extremely important as people are using these tools to make decisions and want to know that these decisions are ones that they can trust. So this information is something they can trust. And it makes a lot of sense about how explainability is such a, and observability of your model is such a big part of that. I
Yeah.
could see how this would also get difficult, as you're in different hybrid environments and as people move to this model of being in hybrid or a multi-cloud environment. In general, how do you see this data integration evolving? What are some of the best practices that people should adopt in order to ensure that if they have their models on various different cloud environments, that they have these good practices and good explainability?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. So the integration one is definitely a challenge, right? Because
Yeah.
you know one key piece is looking at legacy data sources and how we tap into those, right? And then also how are we able to tap into on-prem legacy while also being able to connect to uh, new workloads in the cloud and all these various data sources and where they live. I think we touched on it earlier. I think in integration specifically, the remote execution is huge, right? Because you're not, you're completely eliminating that latency aspect because you can execute your data pipelines and integration pipelines where the data lives, and that's a key piece. But what if you're trying to modernize, right? What if you're trying to take a legacy workload and move it to the cloud? And there might be a skill issue there, or you don't know where this data is coming from. You don't even know how to tap into it. Well, that's where tools like our data catalog or data lineage can help with that, right? Because with a curated data catalog, we can enrich this data and with metadata to understand, what are declassifying these obscure columns with business terms to have a business understanding of what this data is, right? Um, Quality scores, and also be able to tie it to various data classes to understand the structure of the data. That's all important to be able to better understand how to modernize this data set. And that's where lineage comes in too, because how did we get this data and what potential legacy ETL tools do we use initially to transform and load this data? Uh, Modernizing your footprint on-prem or moving to the cloud is actually a really good example use case of data lineage because you want to understand how the data got there, what transformations are being done, and an automated data lineage tool that we have can actually help you understand that. It just scans pretty much a snapshot of all your data across these databases and these various disparate tools across your organization and help you understand what's going on, where did this data come from, what stored procedures are being used, what transformations are being done, what tables are actually being consumed, right? So that better develop a plan for how you're going to modernize. So it's both, right? We can help with where you want to execute your pipelines and where you're trying to go next. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think all this is a good segue to start talking about the product that you supported IBM, because when I met you, we discussed some, really cool IBM products. One was watsonx. It had this amazing explainability. So can you explain to everyone what this is and how these tools are useful?
Yeah, of course. So kind of transitioning from data to now really talk about AI, which, I'm excited to talk about too. Don't get me wrong. Watson X is pretty much our Gen AI platform, right? So there are a lot of various tools and modular different capabilities that you can tap into within Watson X. So at a high level, there is the core platform, which is kind of like the engine. And the core platform is where you'll find all our LLMs like Granite, which is our own foundation models, Llama, and Mistral and some other pretty much a library of foundation models, as well as traditional ML capabilities and some other decision optimization capabilities. And this is all falls under watsonx.ai. And then there's also watsonx.governance, which I think that's really where the focus of our conversation was when we were talking at the convention. And that's really around AI explainability and being able to govern these AI models. And then the last piece is watsonx.data, which kind of blends into what we've talked about in the past, where, what does an Gen AI data store look like? For a lot of workloads, that can be the data lakehouse, but a governed one and a secure one. and that can leverage multiple engines. And that's really what watsonx.data is. It's our kind of open data lakehouse as a data store for Gen AI workloads. So that's the core platform. And then we also have a lot of other AI assistants that kind of are out of the box, ready to go for Code Assistant, as an example, or Orchestrate, which is really focused on like business automation, and some other ones as well. But at a high level, it is a really comprehensive set of products focused on AI. And we've put a lot of eggs in this basket. We are very invested in the AI landscape.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, the UI was amazing. It was very cool to see. I could understand how this would be really helpful to a lot of people. I was talking to, especially law. Like I just had a podcast recently where a lawyer was talking about how he uses AI, and I thought, wow, this would be great for exactly something like that. Um, so a lot of times, in the same vein, there are a lot of people that are using AI, but their concern is around data privacy and security. So how does watsonx address these particular challenges and ensure that you have secure AI deployments?
Yeah, it's yeah. I think there is a couple different things, right? So even starting before I get to watsonx, I'll talk about data curation, which is kind of what we've talked about a lot here, which is kind of, creating that trusted data foundation, these data products. And part of that is being able to mask and obfuscate, columns that might contain PII data. But moving on from that, there are also other guardrails and safe fail safes available, especially in the watsonx platform, to help you detect and be able to remediate those kinds of issues. Now, for our philosophy, it starts with governance and ends with governance when it comes to AI. So before you've even began developing the AI model, we do have a governance and risk compliance kind of module that allows you to define the use case, the purpose, and complete a AI assessment to then automatically classify the various risks of the model. And one of them is data privacy. So if the model is prone to potential data privacy risks, we will annotate that inside the use case so that you're aware. But then moving on to the development side, when you're evaluating the model's output, there's actually specific evaluations for hate, abuse, profanity, and PII. And so um, as soon as that happens, you will get an alert saying, "Uh-oh, there's a problem," right? And as you're evaluating and developing the model, you'll understand that and you'll be able to remediate it as you're developing the model. But we're actually going further than that very soon because there are guardian models that are coming out where you can actually filter a response before you even get it. And this is kind of a very proactive kind of, that's why they call it guardian protector, right? So before you get an output, it will mask the PII before you see it. Of course, you'll still get the alert on it, but kind of the proactive kind of going beyond guardrails, but actually proactively stopping a bad output from happening, especially around, PII or HAP, right? So there are, again, all the way from curation to in production, there's a lot of methods and techniques that we can use. But yes, we have as you probably can tell, there's a lot of ways that you can prevent it. We have all the technology to help you support that across the entire life cycle.
And in general, what is the typical profile of the customer that you're seeing use all these products today?
Yeah, I think it starts with the use case, and that's really a focal point of IBM. I don't know if you've seen any of the ads, but our key thing is IBM, let's create. And then people are like, what does that mean? But really, it's like what it sounds like, we'll help you no matter what your business profile is. Like I work with a lot of different companies in ranging from aerospace to retail to insurance to government to banking to healthcare, because the beauty of AI is that it can be applied in a lot of different ways. Like one example around Gen AI specifically, I have a couple I can share. One company used it for better improving invoice processing because they were getting like uh, extra zeros from the classification done by OCR, which is crazy. I mean, imagine owing someone 20 million instead of 200,000, right? I mean, that's unbelievable. So using Gen AI to improve that accuracy was a really powerful use case, right? And it
Mm.
saved a lot of manual work. Also, like document classification in Gen AI is really powerful too, because some companies have like thousands of unstructured documents and they don't know how to classify them and curate them to the right business unit and the right personas and the right purpose. And so classification is a good one. So I hate to say the cliche thing, but it depends. I think
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of different companies take advantage of AI as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. You mentioned, Gen AI, which I know is one buzzword, but also there are a couple new ones like agentic AI and retrieval-augmented generation, which I believe when you showed me a demo, which is known as RAG, when you showed me a demo, you showed me a RAG system operating as well. Can you explain a bit about what these two things are?
Yeah, of course. So I'll actually start with Gen AI versus traditional AI
Yeah.
because I know there are a lot of people still kind of catching up, and I think it's good because there is definitely a lot of hype right now, and especially around the new kind of cutting edge with agentic. So with traditional versus generative, with traditional AI, you have to train a model based on curated data for every single use case. And generative AI has been this really interesting evolution where, while it's still deterministic, it's able to produce output without a lot of training. Like you can prompt it and it gives you a response. And the chat GBT really was what made this all take off. It was a, phenomenon and it ignited a lot of powerful use cases, particularly RAG. And so RAG uses generative AI. And what RAG is doing is it's taking unstructured data and allowing you to ground a large language model or a generative AI model with your own unstructured documents or PDF documents or PowerPoints or anything like that with your own data so that it can generate natural language response based on your own grounded data. So as an example, if I fed a llama model or our granite model with a Wikipedia article about basketball. And then I asked the model, hey, who won the very first NBA championship? It could look through that article and say, yes, I have that information. The person that won the first NBA championship was, I don't know, but somebody, I don't know. And so the idea of this is to ground an LLM with powerful, data, and some really powerful use cases like, customer care, like answering customer inquiries, inbound customer inquiries, or an expert assistant within the organization. Those are, two really powerful use cases. Now, the challenge with generative AI is it is very powerful, but it can't solve all our problems. And particularly, uh, LLMs and generative AI is still deterministic in nature, so it's really not designed to solve very complex tasks. And so that's kind of where there's been this shift toward compound AI systems. And what I mean by that is taking multiple programs and functions and kind of meshing them together to solve a particular use case. It could be multiple LLMs or it could be multiple systems. Like, one is text to SQL, very powerful. Like, being able to ask an LLM to query for like my compensation data or like my vacation days, right? Because a traditional LLM can't do all that, right? It doesn't have that information. If it did, that would be scary, right? So that's why we use, this kind of compound AI system. Now, compound AI systems are very powerful, but they're also deterministic. You have to program them, right? Like you have to tell it, you have to do this, you have to do this. And when you're trying to accomplish a very complex workflow or multiple workflows, it can become very manual and difficult to train and build. That's where agentic comes in. Because what if we can actually use the LLM as the reasoning engine and be able to give it a bunch of tools like, APIs to your existing systems, databases, and other functions, and be able to reason with itself how to solve a problem and think independently. And that's actually a very powerful evolution for LLMs because for a long time they were designed for one specific thing or very simple tasks, but now we can start to nest and bring different tasks together. And what's really cool about the modern agentic frameworks, like you'll see IBM or some other ones out there, is they'll also come with, various tools to help you, like, access memory. So the LLM has access to the history of conversations that have happened to help improve its reasoning, and also at the same time be able to observe its output and make sure it makes sense based on the prompt. So it's basically slowing down the process, because if you've ever experimented with ChatGPT, it just starts outputting a response right away, right? Any LLM, not just OpenAI, but any LLM, it will just start outputting a response right away. It won't think. And this is very good for certain use cases, like if you're just doing like document classification. But agentic is really powerful because now we can start doing very complex workflows, like check the weather for me. Tell me if this asset is available in my warehouse. Explain to me what to do if this procedure happens. It's going to take a longer time because it needs to independently think about how to solve the problem. But for complex workflows, very powerful, very powerful. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, those are some really interesting use cases that, you know, I guess ChatGPT has this implemented already. Like I uploaded a picture and said, tell me something about the picture. I imagined that behind the scenes they had something that could evaluate an image and then give me a result. I was
Yes.
thinking, like, how
Yeah.
could a large language model by itself be able to evaluate a picture and then also give me some detailed result about that picture back? So,
You're
yeah, I
right.
think a lot of people
You're
don't
right.
realize that these are other models also behind the scenes.
You're right. You're right. I think even for the new model they came out with, there you start to see the reasoning in the background. So it's becoming very, very powerful and popular too. You're seeing it emerge.
What are some of the pitfalls that you see people running into now developing these new RAG systems?
Yeah, so we talked about data quality. That's one of them. So unstructured data quality. Also time to value, because building let's say you're trying to build a RAG pipeline. It does take some time, right? You need to find curated data. You need to ensure that it can be trusted. You need to remove any bad content. And you also need to know how to ingest it into a vector database, and then you need to optimize the vector database. So time to value, it can take a while. We do have tools that can help with that at IBM. We have AutoRag and all these various tools. But then the other piece is governance, right? So we talked about this a lot. Uh, you know, Being able to explain the model's output in production, right? Being able to transparently share how you develop the model, evaluating the risks of the model. Those are all very, very important as well. They're also opportunities, because if you can develop the right AI governance framework across your organization, then you're set up really well for the future. I think that's really important. So while it can be a challenge initially, with the right technology and the right practices, I think it's actually a really good opportunity.
Yeah, it seems like right now, at least, you still need to have someone who knows what they're doing to set up a good RAG system. Maybe in the future, it'll be even more out of the box. It seems like you guys have some good tools like you said auto RAG.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure it'll evolve very quickly, but it seems like it's a very, not the easiest thing to set up right now. You still need to kind of know what you're doing and why you need what.
Yeah, and that's actually a very good point about kind of the value of like out of the box tools. But there's also still a need for extensibility and
Yeah.
customization, right? And we are working on a lot of those areas as well. Like, we have a lot of open source partnerships
Yeah.
like Llama and Mistral. We just announced a partnership with Crew AI, which is an open source agentic framework as well. So you can
Mhm.
onboard your code from that perspective there. And also, IBM Research is developing their own open source frameworks like B to help, it's like a TypeScript based open source framework for building agentic workflows. So I think it's a mix of both. I think you actually hit the nail on the head. Like sometimes to help get started, you do need some no code capabilities or some reusability, whether it's integration, whether it's AI, you name it. But then also being able to combine that with maybe some open source, best of breed kind of frameworks to empower developers and SDKs and APIs and all that good stuff. So I concur 100%.
Yeah, it's evolving rapidly, even being in the field. Sometimes it's a bit hard to keep up with everything going on, but that makes it also really fun.
I
So
feel you. I feel you.
it's a fun ride.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite feature or tool in watsonx?
In watsonx, I really love watsonx.governance. I think there is there is a very extensible framework there because, we not only integrate with our own IBM foundation models like inside of watsonx.ai, but we give you the opportunity to integrate with other third-party LLMs. Like if you're experimenting a lot and are committed to OpenAI, fine, at least govern it because can you really trust that output without having proper guardrails and governance evaluations available there? Right? So the extensibility is fantastic. It allows me to have conversations with a lot of customers across the field that are doing really cool things with OpenAI, but maybe they're just missing the governance piece, right?
Yeah.
Or for organizations that are actually having more of a process issue, like we don't know where to get started. We don't have like the right processes in place, like, for defining a use case and kind of having those workflows in place and tracking everything. And watsonx.governance has a really big piece there as well. So it just kind of depends. And it gives me an avenue to have multiple conversations. Sometimes it's more on, believe it or not, governance risk compliance. And then in other cases, it's more we're in production or we just need better evaluation metrics to explain our model output. Or the last one is I need to be able to document everything that I'm doing automatically. And that's where watsonx.governance can play in all those various areas.
How do you see that evolving in the future? I know we mentioned that governance is something that's going to be increasingly important, and also that this AI ecosystem is just evolving so quickly. What do you think people will need in the near future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, what I'm seeing is, a lot of clients are experimenting with generative AI, but one of the challenges is driving ROI with these
Mhm.
use cases, and then having the confidence to put into production or being able to better automate their workflows, right? And I think that's really to kind of tie into kind of some of the things we've talked about. There is still a strong need for quality data,
Mhm.
but then also on the innovation side, I do see that agentic and even the push towards text to SQL is going to be very important because being able to tap into your data quickly and be able to semantically understand it with generative AI, I think it's going to be very powerful and allow you to unlock more use cases and bring more value to generative AI. I think it's a very exciting future. I think, especially with agentic, I think it's a very exciting future. And I think that it's going to remain very competitive. I don't think one vendor will rule them all. I think an open community, I think is the play in having multiple uh, uh, people at the table and regulated. It is and having that responsible AI is going to be really what should be the focus alongside innovation. Not to say innovation is important. I think innovation is extremely important, but having a mix of both, I think, is going to be, what we see moving forward.
Yeah, well said. Well, I think this was a very informative episode, and I think you summarized a lot of big topics very well. So thank you for coming on. I very much enjoyed it. I always ask if people want to leave with any last words or piece of advice for our listeners.
Yeah, I would say you get what you put out of it. In whatever role you're in today, I have enjoyed it a ton, and part of that reasoning is because I have sunk knee deep into the technology and into the role itself. And I'm not saying experience doesn't matter, but you can pick up experience really quickly if you really put what you can out of it and do your best and apply yourself. And I've learned that a lot in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's evident. Well said. Well,
Cool.
thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.